this evening to this conversation, and thank you, Thomas Pink, for hosting us. We are here in the most stylish shop on Jermyn Street to celebrate a very, very stylish motorcycle. And so I am Amy Miles. I'm the motoring editor of Brummel magazine, and this is Seb.
Hey.
He is the co-founder of Maeving. And Maeving has collaborated with Thomas Pink and the immensely talented vinyl artist Joel Clark, who's just here with us, for the special edition tank and helmet that you hopefully have all seen. So we're here tonight to have a chat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you hear us well, by the way?
Yeah.
Cool, good.
So, Seb, for those who don't know Maeving, can you give us an introduction?
Sure, yeah, so we are Britain's first electric motorcycle manufacturer. We are a kind of small team of 37 people hand building our bikes in Coventry, which is kind of the birthplace of the motorcycle industry in the UK. We are currently the best-selling electric motorbike in the UK. And our kind of like mission is all about getting as many new riders onto bikes and introducing the kind of freedom and passion of motorcycling to a wider community.
Amazing. So I've been thinking quite a lot about the kind of parallels between Thomas Pink and Maeving, and the most obvious one is great British design, I think, in engineering. And so could you kind of talk a little bit about how you got to know Thomas Pink and your background with it and what you like about the brand? And...
Cool, yeah. So Thomas Pink, kind of approached us, but I'd always known about Thomas Pink. When I was a bit younger and I had a career where I had to wear a shirt, I used to come here and I would buy TM Lewin shirts on the daily, and then I would reserve pink as being like the special occasion shirt. So I think I've still got dress shirts from Thomas Pink, and I'm slightly hoping that I might get a wedding shirt in here later and speak to Jonathan afterwards. But yeah, so in my mind, they were always the kind of the cut above, quintessential British shirt. And so it was really nice to be considered a brand worthy of doing a collaboration with them, for sure.
Yeah, certainly. And in terms of your own design, how did you and the team in Coventry start to, work on the first bike, which is the RM1?
First and only, yeah. So I think with electric, everyone is really going down the kind of futuristic route. So most cars and bikes out there, they kind of look a bit like sort of Tron, and they've got lots of screens and make weird noises. And I think conversely, the design in the motorcycle world that people always love, the kind of old school British bikes of the 50s and 60s, the cafe racers, the original board trackers, and that's the kind of design, the eras of design that Britain's really well known for. Yeah. So we're not really a big manufacturing country anymore, but British bikes are still really revered around the world. So if you speak to like bike celebrities like Keanu Reeves and you say, what's your favourite bike of your collection? It's like a Norton or a Triumph. So we very much wanted to keep that heritage in our design. So when we did the initial concept sketching, we were kind of trying to borrow from those eras. But also if you're trying to make a bike that is quite lightweight and doesn't waste any materials, then having a kind of very minimalist style that doesn't have any plastic fairings and stuff like that, it makes sense. So that was where it all came from.
Great, yeah, it looks amazing. And this special edition bike, which you are selling with some proceeds to go to charity as well?
Yes.
Tell us about how that kind of, how you worked with Joel on the design and everything.
Yeah, so well, first of all, doing painting on a 3D object is quite complex. So there are lots of things that would look great on a canvas or a 2D design, and then when someone actually puts it on a tank, it looks rubbish, either because it doesn't follow the contours of the tank or it doesn't kind of complement the lines of the bike. But Joel, who's right there, by the way, he's amazing, and he's done a lot of. He's got, apart from being a real auto nut, has a lot of experience in doing stuff on like car doors and bonnets, and does a lot of kind of 3D work. And for anyone who hasn't really examined the tank, it's made out of layered bits of hand-cut vinyl that he cuts with a scalpel. So there's like a million layers of hand-cut vinyl, and it's all mimicking the kind of natural light, as if you were shining a light on a gloss tank. So it's a very kind of like respectful piece that just follows the contours of the tank. And I think, despite being bright pink, is quite nice and supple.
Yeah, I agree. And if anyone hasn't checked out Joel's work, please do go and talk to him after. This is very, very good. And so if someone wants to own a bike, how do they?
Just come and find us at Maeving. No, yeah, just you can just come to us and get in touch with our team, and presumably, hopefully, the Thomas Pink team as well, and they'll point you in our direction. But yeah, we're just doing 3. It's a small limited run.
Great. And so the RM1 has a kind of different charging function than other 2-wheeled electric vehicles in the UK at the moment. Can you talk about the removable battery and why you decided to go down that route?
Yeah, so in the car world, so energy density at the moment is kind of trailing a little bit behind petrol. And so the way that the car world has got around that is just by putting loads and loads of batteries in cars. It doesn't matter if the car weighs 2.5 tons because it can accelerate quickly, etc. You can't really do that on a bike. You can't have a bike that weighs half a ton. That would be a nightmare. So where it really makes sense is having a removable battery that you can take out and charge like a laptop or a phone, and then just you don't get that range anxiety that comes from worrying about where you're going to charge the bike. You just get home at the end of the day, at the end of the week, take it out and charge it inside, charge it in Costa, charge it at work. So it's just the only technology that really makes sense for a bike.
Yeah. And what's been the biggest challenge so far and success?
We're really great at timing at Maeving. We launched our first fundraiser a month before COVID began. We begun the procurement process just as the supply crisis hit. Wow. We went live just before the war in Ukraine, and then we've been dealing with the fallout since. So there's been quite a few challenges, but and there was one particular moment actually last year where we had all of our batteries were stuck in Shanghai whilst they were just put into another 3-month lockdown. And then they finally made it, and they were sent to Felixstowe Port. For anyone who's not in manufacturing, Felixstowe Port then had a strike for 2 months. And then when it was eventually released, it transpired that our batteries were in a container with some sort of biological contaminant. So it was then quarantined for another month. So our customers had to wait 3 or 4 months to get their bikes. And luckily we have very, very nice customers, so they were okay with it. But that was shocking. And then good things.
Yes.
Good triumph.
Yeah.
Just the team. We got an amazing team. We interviewed our first hire, who was Triumph's head of product, a guy called Graham Gilbert, who's one of the most kind of respected motorcycle engineers in the industry. We interviewed him in COVID lockdown 2 and my mum's picnic rug in Leicester Park, and thank God he said yes, because thanks to him we then got this incredible team, including people like our head of procurement, who was like head of procurement at Jaguar Land Rover, London Electric Vehicle Company, Polestar, Triumph, Norton, and thanks to him we got Bosch as a partner, and then just all kind of snowballed, and now we have a well-made bike thanks to the team.
Amazing.
So yeah, pretty chuffed with them.
Yeah. And so the bikes are built in Coventry.
Yeah.
And you procure the battery and other things from the world's best suppliers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do. I mean, look, 65% I think of the components are sourced and made in the UK, but ultimately, like China makes 90% of the world's batteries at the moment. Yeah. So we work with the biggest supplier of 2-wheel batteries in the world out there, and then Bosch is German, and Spanish supplier makes the seat. So yeah, it's a global supply chain, but we're trying to move as much of it to the UK as possible eventually when we finally make batteries as a country. Yeah.
So speaking of that, batteries, obviously the battery manufacturer British Volt recently kind of closed, and that was a real shame for the industry in general. And what do you think needs to happen for the EV industry to survive and thrive in the UK?
Well, I think it'll survive and thrive one way or another insofar as the government has mandated, all cars to be electric by 2030. And, so one way or another it'll get there. But I think the question is, what could the government be doing more to incentivize people to switch electric? Because I don't know if anyone's aware of the American IRA funding, but at the moment we've got people like EY coming to us and say that they will no win, no fee, do our application to receive full funding to set up a factory in America and have all of our production paid for, just because they're just going crazy on incentives to get EV companies. So conversely, our government took away the one incentive that they were giving to people to get people onto electric, which is called the plug-in grant. So I think they could do a bit more to incentivise people. And if you look at like France and Germany, they've got loads of great incentives to get people customers buying, switching to electric. And charging infrastructure, that's a big problem.
Yes.
There's someone who owns an EV there agreeing.
But the kind of removable battery aspect of the RM1 navigates that a little bit.
No, it does. I think that's the solution for urban environments. I think not just because we make bikes, but I think everyone should be on a bike. It's a great way of getting around a city.
Agreed.
And you don't have that problem. But I was talking to a government official the other day who was talking about where they plan to be in 2030 with fast charging, and it worked out as one fast charger per 6,500 cars, which wasn't great. So I think that could improve, and the more people who get into cars, they'll then siphon into bikes, etc.
Yeah. And there's this kind of talk about how EVs in general reduce emissions compared to petrol-powered vehicles. But there is still an environmental concern with the lithium mining for batteries, and as that demand grows, how do we navigate that problem or challenge?
Yeah, it's a big one. I think there's the sort of supply and mining side. So there are ways of mining, for example, geothermal mining of lithium, which has like no carbon emissions, versus traditional mining, which is like 15 tons of CO2 per ton of lithium. So there's things that can be done there, and there's new battery technology that's coming out that means you don't have to use cobalt, which is a disaster because it all comes from the Congo and there's a bit of an issue there. But from our side, the biggest thing you can do is ensure that the batteries themselves get used well and used for a long period of time. So because our batteries are charged at a standard plug socket, you do very little. Fast charging really damages batteries, so our batteries last quite a long time in the first place. And then after they come to the end of their use, which is when they've lost 20% of their charge, which comes at about 6 years, we then have a partnership to ensure that they're used for second use activities like festival generators, home energy storage, and like golf carts and tuk-tuks and things like electric tuk-tuks. It's just about making sure that it gets continually used and then eventually recycled.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because the climate crisis was a real motivator for you in starting the business, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my co-founder and I, we decided we were going to start a business when we met at Durham within like 6 months, and that was the one thing that we knew, was that it was going to be broadly in the arena of kind of trying to fight climate change.
Yeah.
And then I was a passionate biker, so I shoehorned that in.
It's great to see you kind of using that, and obviously with the recycled batteries as well. That's great. So, where do you envision the future of electric vehicles going? Not considering all the challenges from the government. What else? Whatever else.
I think the car industry is on quite a sort of linear trajectory. I think the interesting thing at the moment is how many different forms of electric transport there are, and how people are considering like a whole panoply of different modes of transport, from like electric push scooters to e-bikes to now scooters and motorbikes. I think people are a lot more open to it. So a lot of the people who are buying our bikes are not people who would have ever bought a petrol bike.
Yeah.
They're new riders who see this as like an EV, and so they're on board.
Yeah, great.
So I think that's just like a broadening of the category, which is cool.
Yeah, that is great. It's great to get more people on bikes, always.
Always.
So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Seb?
As a fan of motorbikes, will you miss the internal combustion engine?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So I'm a unashamed petrol head. I've come at this from being a passionate biker. I still own 2 petrol bikes. I've got a petrol car, although I think my next car will be electric. So I'm definitely someone who's enjoyed like the noise and the vibration, and I love all the artistry that's gone into petrol engines. I think it's just that when you weigh it up, I think as EVs get better and more engaging and faster and more interesting, then I think the choice becomes clearer. So I rode a performance electric motorbike the other day. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. And I think as long as the technology that's taking over is engaging, instead of some of the cars that are coming out, which are just like LCD screens and kind of sheltering you, then I think people will switch. But I'm definitely, I look forward to the day when we make a full power motorbike that replaces my full power petrol motorbike, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think you need to make it compelling, and there is always going to be a few people who really struggle with the transition, for sure.
I do have a little bit of a curve. How do you convince the councils? How would you convince the councils to changing the tax on motorcycles compared to cars in London?
Well, there's no tax on our bike, just purely because it's electric. So I haven't got a lot of experience in that sphere because we've managed to
Being a
leapfrog that piece.
motorcyclist yourself,
Yeah.
you've seen how they are planning on taxing motorcycles as much as cars. Just
Yeah, I suppose because we're fortunate enough to be on the right side of that equation. It's not something that I'm too familiar with. I haven't actually even appreciated that my tax bill's about to increase for my petrol bikes. So this is news to me.
But if you live in Hackney, you'll have heard.
I think all I can suggest is that you buy one of our electric motorbikes.
Cool.
How fast does it charge when it's completely depleted?
So it actually takes about 3.5 hours to charge, which seems like a long time, I think, if you're used to, like 30-minute fast charge. But so in Shanghai, well, not Shanghai, China generally, 80% of people are on electric vehicles. No one knows about this. I think when I started the business, Norway was the big, kind of excitement. It was like 50% adoption. China's 80% adoption. And that's because everyone is riding around on scooters with removable batteries. And what's happened over there is that the landscape is just completely transformed. And everyone is used to coming home from work, taking off their jacket, putting up the battery and charging it, like once a week. So your charging habit just changes. It's a little bit like, how mobile phones used to have like 5 days worth of battery, and now they have like half a day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother anyone because you have a charger at home, you have a charger at work.
Yeah.
It's your charging habits that have changed. And I think that's the mindset shift that China and Asia more broadly has already undergone, and I think hopefully we're about to see.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what's the range in terms of how many miles are we getting out of one charge?
So 80 miles for our bikes. The average UK commute 6.7 miles. So most people are charging this kind of like once or twice every 2 weeks, that kind of thing. And this is very much built for city commuting. It's capped at 45 miles per hour, so it's a city bike.
Okay.
You obviously quickly come unstuck if you're trying to go from here to Coventry.
Do you have any type of tracking system in the bike if it's stolen or?
Yeah, we got a GPS tracker, because if you have GPS trackers, you've got like a 93% chance of it being recovered, I think. We've had 3 thefts, they've all been recovered. So we have a 100% success record with 3 bikes.
On the phone or?
Yeah, there's an app and yeah.
I wonder if the thieves actually know what to do with it.
They don't. There's all we see is crowbar marks all around the top of the tank. They've not actually managed to open it, and then they just throw it in a bush. It's very unhelpful. A CVT license. We just thought we'll leave it.
And is that going to affect the range?
The bike that will come out with the pillion seat will be a higher capacity machine, so it'll be a bit more capable. Yeah.
Are you going along with similar styling?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I think these are the British bikes that people love, and I think it's important. Like we're not clinging on to the past. I think it's like bringing the best of the past, but because I think there's nothing on the bike which is just a sort of tired rehash of what's gone before. It's all fresh, but it's just that there are cues that people like. They love like the quilted seat. They like being able to see and touch the metal components. It's that kind of like naked motorcycle philosophy. That's an official term for people who aren't bikers. And like we specifically converted the digital signal into an analog one for the speedo, so that you had a retro speed dial. It's because we just don't want the like sensory bombardment of a big LCD screen. It's just like simple, pure riding. But I think as we go up the performance chain a bit, then obviously you do need to start thinking about the performance characteristics of the bike. So you go maybe a little bit further away from pure heritage. But yeah.
How did you find the representation of Maeving in The Apprentice recently?
Question. They say no publicity is bad publicity, but when you've got 20,000 people say, "Is that Zip Zap?" You do get a bit bored of it. But I think that people tend to, I think you enjoy The Apprentice and then you forget about it within a month. So yeah, I think it's been a good thing generally.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, one more.
Do you think maybe both motorcycles and electric bikes in general could be used for overland, long distance, adventurous motorcycle travel?
This bike, no. It would be a disaster because the clearance between the wheel and the mudguard is about 6 millimeters. So if you get a stone in there, it makes a horrible racket. But yes, you can theoretically use, you're some rear shocks and different mudguards away from being able to use it off-road. But no, it's not a long distance vehicle. I think it's definitely going to be a while until you can get the kind of 250 miles that Chris would expect from his touring bike.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I was going to ask what's the future for Maeving, but you've kind of covered that. So
Spill the beans.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. When can we expect the?
I think just generally we want to make bikes that cater for all use cases. I think that at the moment we're wedded to removable batteries because there's not the charging infrastructure to support a kind of full plug-in bike. But so yeah, for the foreseeable future, we'll be in what you can achieve with a removable battery space.
Great.
So focused on urban transport. But yeah, sky's the limit.
Great. Well, we look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.